But now it's about saving the country. And Mitt Romney's going to save it for us, apparently, today. He had lavish praise on Donald Trump just a few years ago when he needed his money. And today he's coming out and invoking Reagan. In the 1964 speech, just days before the presidential election, when Ronald Reagan went on national television and challenged America to vote for, of course, Barry Goldwater, because it was a time for choosing a new direction for the country, away from the establishment Republican Party to a new direction moving forward. And he saw two paths for America. And Romney is going to quote Reagan today and wrap himself in Reagan. So I thought, who better to discuss this late in the game hit job by Mitt Romney, Mr. 47%, I should say, Mitt Romney, who wrote off 47% of the electorate and is attacking the guy who's actually bringing in voters to the party. Go figure that out. Then our friend, Reagan biographer, phenomenal writer, thinker, Last Act is mega bestseller on Reagan's final days, our friend Craig Shirley. Craig, great to have you with us. How are you?
Hi, Laura. How are you? You forgot to mention John Denver.
Oh, in the 70s?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Don't. See, I listen to that music. And
I know. It takes you back.
It takes you back, but to a feeling about the country, too. You know.
Well, I have to admit that I was in college. I had a guilty pleasure because when my door was open, I'd have Zeppelin on in my dorm room. But then when I shut the door, I'd put on the Carpenters.
Oh, my God. You were the definition of uncool back then.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty funny. Craig, so this is Romney's coming out of retirement. Yeah. Yes. Tell me where we are right now, and what should we think about Romney invoking Reagan?
It's ridiculous. First of all, 1964, Time for Choosing, is firmly in American history among one of the greatest one of the greatest speeches by a private citizen. It's right up there with Cross of Gold. It's right up there with House Divided. It's right up there with Patrick Henry, Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. It is firmly implanted in American history. And secondly, it was not an anti-candidate speech. It was a pro-Goldwater speech. It was a pro-American speech. It was a pro-freedom speech. So Mitt Romney is not only wrong, he's historically wrong. He's wrong in every way. I'm biting my tongue to remember, not to say too much bad about Mitt Romney, but it's insulting. For Mitt Romney to compare himself to Ronald Reagan. Mitt Romney comparing himself to Ronald Reagan is like Friedrich Hayek being compared to Selma Hayek.
Only you would come up with that formulation, which is why we love you. Now, I'm thinking he's trying to do to Trump what he did to that old dog Seamus, who was on the Seamus, who was strapped to the roof of the car. Remember he had the dog on the roof of the car?
Well, don't forget Romney bashed Reagan when it was convenient to bash Reagan when he was running for the Senate. His father bashed Reagan when it was convenient to bash Reagan. Romney has a history of being there when he needs you. He needed Trump 4 years ago. He doesn't need Trump now. And, I might add is that this is kind of, there's not a lot of history of national service in the Romney family. Romney didn't serve in Vietnam. His father didn't serve in World War II. His great-grandfather didn't serve in World War I. So his claims on American patriotism, I think, are very tenuous.
And it is quite ironic, isn't it, that the man who wrote off 47% of the electorate behind closed doors is now part of another behind closed doors strategy session efforts to amass a war chest of negative ads against the guy who's actually, without a doubt, bringing in millions of new people into the party and re-energizing those blue-collar voters who, frankly, have been just so demoralized in recent years.
Well, think about this, is that Trump carried Massachusetts the other day. Romney didn't run for re-election as governor of Massachusetts because he was afraid he would fail. Is that Trump is potentially more popular in Massachusetts right now than is Mitt Romney.
Well, look at the numbers. This is stunning. The numbers for Romney in the primary, which is a different scenario, obviously, but the numbers for the Massachusetts primary in 2012, the overall number of votes cast for Romney, 266,313. That's a pretty good number. He won like 70%.
Primary, yeah,
70% of the.
Still in the dead of winter in Massachusetts.
Yeah, 70. He won 71% of the vote, but obviously a smaller field, right?
Right.
Trump, with a bigger field, wins 311,313. Weird, it's 313. And
33% more.
Right. And the overall number of votes, the total votes were 604,814. So this is a stunner. He won. So Trump won 41%, Drew, or 49% of the vote in Massachusetts with a crowded field. And you would think that someone like Romney would form common cause with Trump. Both businessmen, the background.
Well, that would be smart.
It would be smart of him.
The elites to reach out now to Trump and at least open the door and that would be the smart thing to do. But I think they're too caught up in their own hubris. They're too caught up in their own. Reagan. I don't think Trump is remaking a Republican Party. I think he's reformulating the old Reagan coalition because Reagan, as you know, brought in the Reagan Democrats, those blue-collar ethnic, and he gave speeches in the 70s about the new Republican Party cannot be the party of the country club and the corporate boardroom. It has to be the party of the police officer on the street and the farmer and the shopkeeper. So I think that Trump is bringing back the Reagan Democrats who were kicked away by the Bushes and by Romney.
If you had to step back and advise someone like a Ted Cruz today, because he's really closer to Trump than he is to the establishment. I mean, he really is. I mean, I know he hates Trump, or it's so personal, and I get it. I get why he's mad, and I get why Trump's mad. I understand that. But if you had to advise Cruz which way to turn right now, what would you say to him?
Boy, well, I mean, in the interest of full disclosure, my firm, although I'm not really involved, is helping John Kasich. But
no, we like Kasich. I like Kasich too.
He's a good man. He's a good conservative. He was there.
Oh, he has experience. He's actually done something in his life other than be in politics.
Right, or just inheriting wealth.
Right.
But I guess that what Cruz needs to do is that. Let Rubio take the low road and he take the high road, but he's got to, the trick in politics is that to beat an idea, you have to present a better idea. So he's got to figure out what is the better idea that he can get ahead of Donald Trump's head of steam right now. What is the idea or the signature issue or the set of ideas or the formulation that can get him to a point where he's defining Trump instead of Trump defining him. And then, that's interesting is that this is why Mitt Romney's foray back into national politics is so dumb. Donald Trump got to where he is today by first defining himself against Jeb Bush, then defining himself against Marco Rubio. Now he's got a new foil, and that is to define himself against Mitt Romney. It all works to Trump's advantage.
And right now, we have a dynamic in this race where I think the people who are supporting one of the outsider candidates, I still think it's Cruz or Trump, called outsiders. They're the majority. They're just the majority of the party.
Absolutely.
And now the richer people, the people who are used to calling all the shots, are on the outs. Yeah, are on the outs. They're in this last minute huddle to take down Trump, which they have to know is going to give the election to Hillary. So think about that. They lost the election to Obama twice. Now, as we're about to win huge and could have someone who can actually beat Hillary and beat the Clintons, which would be nice because we always lose against the Clintons, and they're going to turn it over to the Clintons. This is crazy.
It's like Custer's Last Stand, only this time we're rooting for the Indians.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's part that as well. But I always think of President Reagan in these circumstances because you have so many trying to wrap themselves in the Reagan mantle without really understanding Reagan. It's like, well, Reagan, Reagan worked with Tip O'Neill, and this guy is just offending everyone. And you've put that notion to bed so many times on this show, but it keeps getting repeated.
Sure. And so I spend half my week putting to bed false nostrums about Ronald Reagan because they keep coming up, about Reagan and Tip O'Neill, or Reagan and never having a temper, or Reagan, being pro-abortion, or Reagan being, soft on communism. It goes on and on and on and on and on.
Craig,
but on the other hand, the good news is that I'd rather be a Reagan biographer than a Rutherford B. Hayes biographer.
No, you'd rather be a Reagan biographer, but a Bush biographer at this point. I mean, you'd just rather be writing about Reagan because in 20 years from now, we're not going to be saying, Well, guess, I was always a Bush Republican, and I grew up as a Bush Republican. It's just not going to happen. Hey, Craig, we got to go, but we love you. Thank you so much for coming on, the author of Last Act and so many other phenomenal bestsellers over the years. Craig Shirley on the Laura Ingraham